This article is a few days old, and I would like to take the time to read it. As somebody who also suffers from depression, clearly this person would have some sort of grasp on what it's like to be depressed. Surely. Surely this is not just political whinging. Surely. At any rate, as you can see, this is an archive from a website called For Harriet. This article seems to have been written in 2016. It does not say on the website. At any rate, I looked it up, and it is an exact copy from Bobby London's website, who is the person who wrote this article. Excuse me. According to her website, she is a black woman. So it makes sense that for Harriet, the Harriet in this case being Harriet Tubman, would host such an article. And it deals with depression and mental health. So clearly, we're going to glean something useful from this, are we not? I am here, sitting in my bed, fighting my depression, trying not to bask in the somberness for too long, pondering how I'm going to shatter ceilings with 3 generations on my back. Oh dear. You feel pressured by your ancestors. Are you sure you're not Scandinavian? I've always been nervous and scared about writing so personally about myself in such a non-intimate way, but I find myself in a writer's block that only raw honesty can rip away. Or strip away, I'm not sure. There's a feeling of liberation that comes with being vulnerable, and of course there was also tons of anxiety that comes with it as well. I also wonder about the security culture aspect of this personal disclosure, and how wise is it for me to discuss such things in a time when all keystrokes are being analyzed and stored for the state to use later. Maybe in the future I'll regret revealing so much, but for now I will choose self-empowerment over strategic persistence. Or resistance. Probably resistance. Or maybe the act is both. So you legitimately think that the government, of all things, is going to go sifting through your articles and find one about how you have depression and use it to somehow oppress you? Yes, well, wouldn't be surprising, honestly. I think it's interesting that when I talk about my depression in a public manner, people usually feel the need to prescribe things to help the situation. As if I have a cold and I just need to drink some lemon tea or something, not understanding that depression is, at least for me, something that is structurally created. Oh, the victim complex. I am depressed because I live in a white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist world. I am depressed because people that look like me are constantly being murdered. I am depressed because the state has purposely made it difficult for black families like mine to survive. I am depressed because I have suffered traumas from white supremacy and the police state. I am depressed because the only way this will end is if we have continual revolutions. I am depressed because I don't know if I'm going to know how it feels to be free. And here we see the crux of what this article really is, and what anybody would suspect that it is, given the title. Depression is political. It's political whinging, as it always is, really. The white supremacist capitalist patriarchy is holding down my brothers and sisters. Anyway, I will go on my little rant later. Let's continue. I do not understand how more people aren't depressed in this world. Well, maybe that's because more people don't have depression. But we'll get to that later in my little rant. I find that people are quick to blame depression on the person who has it. Gee, I wonder why that is. I've been told often, well, you just got to focus on the positive. My goodness. If I had a fiver for every time I've heard that one. Like, oh, wow, why haven't I thought of that? I'll just simply ignore my circumstances and just find the good things in life, like peanut butter with chocolate or pool parties. Yeah, there you go. That's it. When someone declares that they are oppressed, there is this fear and uncomfortability that happens to those that are listening. People are uncomfortable with the honesty and self-awareness. They see the sadness as a weakness, as something to be addressed. Depression is not sadness. But again, I'll get to that later. But I am not weak, and my depression is not weakness. The awareness is isolating, which makes sense that social anxiety is such a common thing for black people and non-blacks in intentional resistance spaces. It feels as though this country and its inhabitants are constantly gaslighting you. People ask me, "How are you doing?" or "Why are you depressed?" I wonder if this is someone's extreme privilege and distance from my struggle that allows for them to be so naive, or are they just willfully ignorant? Really, it's privilege for somebody to go, "Hi, how are you doing?" Really? Is that how you see the world? Oh, you are just precious, aren't you? My depression is not a mental health problem. It is not fixable by seeing a therapist or popping any pills. Well, then you don't have depression. You really don't have depression, do you? You just have sadness because of your victim complex. My depression is the direct result of anti-blackness and all of the cruelty that this country has shown to black people. My depression is political, and it should be treated as such. I think of Sandra Bland often. The picture of her mugshot still haunts me. It shows the capability of the state, the level of fascism, and the organized badge-wearing white supremacists. When I watched the video of her arrest, the whole time I thought that could have been me. It reminded me of a recent event where I was encircled by heavily armed police officers and threatened to be arrested for cop watching and asking the police officers why they were using excessive force on a man that you could hear wailing from down the street. Oh yes, police brutality is a problem in the United States. It's a problem that crosses all financial backgrounds and all skin colors. Don't think that you're the only one that experiences this sort of thing. I've seen it firsthand myself when it came to a couple of friends of mine who were accused of trying to break and enter into a local Dairy Queen. They couldn't catch who actually did it because the cops were, I should say, they're not here anymore, were fat and slow. And it's difficult to chase people through yards when you're in a vehicle. But that night, they still showed up to my friend's house and arrested 2 of them with no evidence to back it up whatsoever. None. One of whom was a minor at the time, and he was convicted because of his completely useless public defender who didn't say a goddamn thing in the courtroom. And my other friend was acquitted because they had 5 police statements that all lined up perfectly. So yes, police brutality is an issue, but you're not the only one who experiences it, I assure you. Even though I had my press badge on me, they told me that they would gladly arrest me. I told them that if they arrested me, I would take them and the LAPD to court. More police officers arrived in riot gear with shotguns ready in hand. I was intimidated and successfully bullied away from the scene. Are you going to provide a link to this? Any of it? Pictures? Documentation? No, of course not. I mean, I can easily take you at your word. This is something that I expect could happen, but it really seems like you think that, that you think that police showed up in riot gear specifically because there was a black journalist harassing them. Quote unquote, harassing them. I think about, what if I would have stayed and was arrested? Would they have murdered me? And if so, would they try to cover it up as a suicide? I wonder if they would use my depression to aid in their cover-up. I know that we live in a surveillance state, but I refuse to be silenced about the violence that is constantly being inflicted onto me and others. Really, when were you assaulted? My resistance is strategic, and I'm allowed to be vulnerable. So if the state ever wanted to kill me and try to rule it as a suicide, here it all is, your Exhibit A. And at the very end, Bobby London is co-host of On Resistance Radio on 90.7 FM KPFK and a Los Angeles-based writer and journalist. You can find her writing on thisisbobbylondon.com, counterpunch.org, and her last article, When White Men Rape, on For Harriet. Also, I checked the actual article, and it credits a photo here, but there's no photo on the actual website. You can easily Google it for yourself. But here's my little rant, okay? Articles like this are the reason why depression isn't taken seriously. The reason why people think, oh, well, you just need to focus on the positive. Stop being so negative. Just cheer up. The world isn't a terrible place. Because of people like you. Do you understand the damage that you do to people who actually have depression? It is a mental illness. Depression is. And you do not have depression. Do you understand me? If you are watching this, I want you to understand exactly what I am saying. You are not depressed. Okay? You do not have a chemical imbalance in your brain that gives you an existential crisis on a daily or weekly, in more minor cases, basis. Your little political whinging does nothing for people who have mental illness. This is you signaling, look at me, I'm such a victim. Oh, I'm black and there's too many white people. And moreover, attempting to co-op a mental condition to excuse why you're so anxious about the political climate isn't going to help you either, because you are contributing to the stigma around depression. Nobody's going to take you seriously about it either. You have admitted so in your fucking article. Piss off, play victim somewhere else.